I'd like to pose a question now to Dr. Nadkarni, going back to something that you said during your previous response, and now with the context of Sonia and Nikita's journeys. How do you feel that the early experiences that people have in high school and college end up relating to the careers that they end up taking later on? Do you feel that generally, the first a couple experiences that people have in high school end up being the journey that they take, or is it more about what ends up defining people and what people are actually interested in, and it might end up taking a long time in order to find that, but ultimately they do? What are your thoughts on this kind of journey and how these early experiences really define you? And if you could potentially include anything that you feel that high schoolers should probably think about when they're kind of looking at these different experiences, figuring out which experiences to take in the first place. So what are your thoughts, Dr. Nadkarni?
So, Shru, that's a great question. And I will build up a little bit on what Nikita and Sonia so skillfully talked about, that Sonia and Nikita, both of you mentioned about how your experiences right now are just not about building your career. They define your values, they solidify your passions, they do a lot more than just point to a career path. And actually, I grew up at a time in India where we did not have internship opportunities. We did not have work opportunities, social service opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and so on. We just had a slatted kind of education path. However, I still noticed that people, what they did during their high school years, that totally ends up defining what they end up doing, becoming, and what ends up becoming their passion in some fashion or another. So I'm going to give you, I'll share with you three experiences. One of the experiences is one of my clients. He actually made in his high school, in India, they sell books on the roads, which come from the Western world at that time, on physics, chemistry, and so on. So he made little radios to sell, and then he would use that money to buy those books from the street vendors. In his adult life, he combines his bookish love for bookish knowledge with his entrepreneurial proclivities, and he is a very good entrepreneur who has formed several companies. So that's one example. I'll share with you another example of myself. I love to read and I love to write. I loved reading everything. I read cereal boxes, newspapers I jumped on first. I got books from the library. I read everything. I loved reading and I loved writing. I was writing all the time. I still find my little things that I wrote some couplets and so on in high school. So I was the first person on the bench. I wrote the whole lecture down. I just liked writing. I don't know if I even read all the notes, but I wrote a lot. And one of the things I ended up doing now, I mean, I did some writing for newspapers and so on, but I realized that it was not a paid career I was looking for in writing. And it wasn't like I wanted to write about a Bollywood star visiting Bay Area. So now I have a blog. I like writing about science, technology, and so on. And I have an active blog with nearly 5,000 followers and so on. So it didn't end up becoming my career, but I think I'm kind of well known and it sort of jives nicely with what my career is. And I'll give you a third example of, there is a professor called Professor Abraham Verghese at Stanford. Anurag might know him. He is a very well-known writer. He has written some books that are probably going to become movies too, like Cutting for Stone and so on. And he was once somebody told him that he should just do writing. And he is actually a physician at Stanford. And he said, I could not write if I was not a physician. So sometimes your career may just fill out your life in a nice way with something else that you have discovered as your passion. So again, I want to jive with what Sonia and Nikita mentioned, that your experiences right now are not just going to give you a well-defined career path. They're really pointing a way to the life that you will incorporate as you as you go forward. And also your career will continue to evolve as well. So you need to make sure that you are flexible and learning and accepting the new experiences that come into your life. And that flexibility will also serve very well in a time like this coronavirus, when a lot of people's careers will be redefined at a time like this. So be flexible for all the new experiences that you're getting. I really had no idea what I will end up doing, but what gave me passion was I really like to understand people and know about people, and that's why I somehow felt that psychology was what I wanted to go into. So I have a PhD in psychology, which is a far cry from recruitment. And sometimes people ask me, how does recruitment make sense? I mean, and I myself wonder how I got into recruiting. But on the other hand, some of my clients say, you're really good at this because you understand people. So I think you may not get a really clear career path from what you do, and you should not feel that as a pressure that what you do will end up being your career, but it does somehow, in a mysterious, magical, and very clear way, get to what you end up doing as your career.